You have this sefer, it's on page 20, we're holding, in the Hakdama of Reb Itzele of Volozhin, the son of Reb Chaim Volozhin, and he was speaking about the Anavah of his father, but more important for us is our Anavah, the Anavah, humility. You know, we're going a line at a time, but we are getting through it. It's just a shame to go fast. But I spent some time at the beginning of the week explaining that Anavah is not necessarily the way we translate it. And what I'd like to be mavar today is that it could actually be the opposite of the way we translate it. Anavah, we say humility, I'm nobody, I'm nothing, who am I, what am I? I think Anavah, to say the whole shir in one sentence, Anavah is when I am the center of my world and I'm important in my world and how I feel is important. That's the opposite of Anavah. If I could take myself out of the center, then I'm truly an Anav. And whether you feel you're great or you feel you're small is not really the issue. It's a question is, I feel. The dagesh is on the I. I know that one of the things that I was very moved by in my life is when years ago when the sefer came out, Kraina de Igris, there was letters that the stipler wrote to different people that asked him his advice. It came out with that sefer right after he was nifter. I was at his levaya, and somebody was writing about how difficult for him it is in the world of yeshivas because he's not the iluyas like so many of his chaverim are. He doesn't have the capacity. He doesn't have the ability to sit for long periods of time. And he says that I don't really have the background that everybody else has, and I don't really understand things the way everybody else understands. And he was writing the stipler for some physik and eitzah. And the stipler wrote him back. He says that the word that you used most in your letter was I. I don't have the capacity. I'm not as smart as everybody else. I don't have the background. He says, what's this ani? He says, that's gaiva. That's gaiva. So here is this whole letter of shiflus. It's a whole letter of humility, and he's humbling himself in front of the Gadol Hador, and Gadol Hador seems to have been a real litvak. Like your problem is that you're a balgaiva. You're too concerned with the I. Just go ahead and do it. I was thinking sometimes, I know I've had this experience. I'm not an example of an Anav, but at all, as I will demonstrate to you. But I know that sometimes, like you're at a shir. I remember once being at a shir. It was a shir actually of Rav Moshe Shapiro. Shlit'a should be gesund to have Rav Moshe. But I went to a shir regularly for a number of years. It was a small chabura of people. And one like this, he spoke very beautiful things and deep things. And to him, every Gemara and every Chazal and every Zohar and every Arizal and every pasuk, like you knew by heart. You never have to open up a sefer. Every pasuk was perfect with dictum, the way he said it. Real simple. Not to mention a deep person. But you listen to a shir and you have questions. And I think most of the people in the shir were like sort of petrified to ask a question because with him it was such that if looks could burn, you'd be French fried. Just like if it was a stupid question. So you didn't even answer. You just looked to you like that's a question. So I for one chose to be quiet, and I think I could remember the three questions that I asked over 4 years, and did get that look. But on the other hand, there was a guy next to me who was actually the Rav of Rabat Hasharet, Rabbi Yeshua Steinberg. So he sat next to me at the shir, and this was a shir of Rabbanim, and he asked and usually got that look, and sometimes didn't get that look. So I told him I once said to him, I said, kol hakavod that you're not bayesh to ask. And he says, so he said to me, he says the problem is, he says you're afraid that he's going to think you're stupid. He says I don't really care. Little by not I have to learn. So I said, wow, here I thought I'm the Anavah, but he's the Balgaiva. Oh, the other way around. I was the Balgaiva, but he was the Anavah. So interesting. So I saw, we're going to learn about this inside, but I saw, this is sefer, by the way. This is the Shul's B'Shvili Nivra Olam. It's written anonymously. It says here, this is the 14th edition. A beautiful little sefer. He wrote a whole series of svarim called Bilvavi Mishkan Evna, which we have some of them here. They're just beautiful, beautiful svarim. Anonymous. I don't know who it is. Maybe people know. I don't know. But he brings, this is a likud. And one of the things that he says here, from the son of Rabbi, Zatzal, the Torah's voice, he says, Yeshnam anashim shayiroitzim ba'avodasa yisbarach. There are many people that would love to do the avodas Hashem. They would love to do the avodas Hashem. Elishemipnei Anavah psula shebehem, but because they have this sort of false sense of humility, heim choshvin kein ze biyodem lahasa. You figure I'm not really going to get to that place. You hear a story about the Chafetz Chaim, and you say, well, what do I have with the Chafetz Chaim? That was the Chafetz Chaim. Where am I going to do? How am I going to be able to do what the Chafetz Chaim did? Because they don't do it, in fact, they fall. So he writes here, Zeg garua od migeus. That's even worse than gaiva. V'davar zeg gufay sharshay geus. And in fact, it is gaiva. If you think about it, its root is gaiva. So here, how does this work? You have a person, think about this for a minute. You have a person who's saying, I'm not holding by this kind of a mitzvah. I'm not... they say that the Chafetz Chaim, at the case in point, Chafetz Chaim at the beginning of every Shabbos Suda, he would have guests at his table, and so at the beginning of every Shabbos Suda, when he was making Kiddush, he would on purpose spill a little bit of the wine out of his cup onto the white tablecloth and make a spot, and that was so that nobody at the table should ever feel bad about spilling some wine on the tablecloth. It's already dirty. So he would do that. So somebody said that I would do that too. He says, but I'm not the Chafetz Chaim, to go and spill wine on the table. I'm not holding by that madrega. So sometimes you hear something which is so fantastic about a gadol or a tzaddik, and you say, I'm not holding on that here. So he says, Ze gufay sharsha geus. That in itself is gaiva. So why is it gaiva? Why is it gaiva? I'm not holding by this madrega. I can understand where it's bad because it's stopping you from being like the Chafetz Chaim. But how's it gaiva? That's the question. How is it gaiva? So I think that the pshat is that it's gaiva because if a person is concerned, am I on the level of the Chafetz Chaim? Am I not on the level of the Chafetz Chaim? That's a lot of self-centered thinking. There's a lot of thinking about who am I, what am I. It's not really up for a conversation. Just do the best you can, and if you hear a wonderful thing, wonderful anhaga, just do the wonderful anhaga. If you're worried that I'm not on the madrega of the Chafetz Chaim, so now you're all of a sudden mitchashev with how does this look with me, and how am I, and what's my madrega. Too many times the word I, I. So it becomes an I. You know what I mean? It's zagufay sharsha begaiva. So it's a interesting flip around. Very, very difficult. I just we don't usually talk in this shir so much musar, but I find it very difficult. If somebody tells me that it's better to buy a $1,000 pair of tefillin than an $800 pair of tefillin, I can handle that. Okay, so you go buy a nice pair of tefillin, buy nice tzitzis, buy a nice mezuzah. If it tells me to be an anav, that's already very difficult. Like this is X-ray into here. I think I'm acting like an anav, and I'm not acting like an anav. I'm acting like a balgaiva gufa because of my anivus. In Yiddish, the expression is mach sich nicht tazay klein, du bist nicht tazay groß. You ever hear that expression? Right? Don't make yourself so small. You're not so big. You're not so big. tell you, I was once sitting at a chuppah next to one of the gedolim. I mean, I don't know who's a gadol, who's not a gadol, but a famous person. Anyways, like a famous person. I was sitting at the chuppah, so at the chuppah, so he starts asking me like, who am I? Where am I from? And what do I do? And conversation, and I'm thinking like always every time I go to a chuppah, I'm thinking always like one should be respectful to the chassan and kala and not talk. Really, it disturbs me when people talk at chuppahs. First of all, this guy's they're paying like $20,000-$30,000 for this chassan of $50,000. What are you talking? But it's not like cell phones and this and talking. But here I'm sitting. I was in a dilemma because here I'm sitting next to this very, very famous person. And he's talking. Like that conversation. I'm trying to listen to the bracha. So then came to the final bracha, like big bracha. At the end of the chuppah, the bracha achrita. So they called him Pagoin Adir, with Iker Harim. Like they were mechabening him with the bracha. So I remember he stands up and he holds my hand and he says to me, also in Yiddish, he says, "Biz the bracha achrita, until you get to the last bracha, the neshama cannot rise." He says you can die. Like what? Like whoa! What was that? Like he was telling me, he was admitting to me that this whole conversation that we're having was a defense mechanism against the fact: are we going to get a bracha? We're not going to get a bracha. It's a big thing, by the way, when you make a chasana, like who you give a bracha, like a big issue. but here he was talking kilu, like it's like it reminded me once that I read that by Agadata here, but when you come into the airport. You go through the green light or the red light, if you have someone to declare the red light, the green light. So they stop people, every once in a while they stop people who they think might have something that they're smuggling in. So there was an interview once, I was like, how do you know who to stop? Who do you know how to stop? So he said that, that some people come in and they're talking on the phone while they're going and they're already waving to the people outside. Those are the ones we stop because all they're doing is trying to distract. He says, so we know exactly those people, the ones that are coming and they're worried, they're fine. So it's an interesting. But then it goes deeper because here I'm thinking to myself, wow, what about Gaiva? Like he's so worried whether he's going to get this bracha or that bracha. Like you shouldn't even care. But the truth of the matter is that was the Anavah. I mean, he was facing the fact, honest with the fact that I'm still about Gaiva. So it became very deep. I didn't get any bracha at all at this chassan, and I still resent it. Okay. So here you have this. Ein zegarua oid migeyus. Person who says I can't, you can't, is even worse than gaiva. V'davar zeh gufay sharsha geyus. That in itself comes from a place of gaiva. So what I'm saying, like to buy tefillin is easy, but when you think about this deep X-ray of what's where are we really coming from? Like what's the source of our humiliation? The source of our humiliation might be just gaiva. It might be gaiva. So who cares? Do we have to care so much? Apparently, that's the real avodas hadam, more than the tefillin and the tzitzis. The real avodah here is to really be. Let me just tell you one more thing that I saw last night. I happened to be learning last night in I think it's over Rabbi Yaacov Haber, that he asked the question, why is it this week's parsha? Why is it that the I'm not going to be here Shabbos, so you can. Here's my drasha. Why is it that the big day kahuna, this week's parsha Tetzaveh, the big day kahuna, are made out of shatnez? Pella. I mean, it's like like karbonos should be basar b'cholov and chaser. I mean, shatnez is us. Shatnez is us. So why is it the big day kahuna? And that's the only place. The Gemara says, the Gemara Yevamos wants to know whether that's called essay doichaloisa say or it's bisvasa b'kahol b'chloikas of the Gemara. How do you look at it halachically? But like simply put, like why is big day kahuna, the holy of holies, in the holy of holiest at the holiest time is wearing shatnez? Like what's What's the pshat in that? So I think Rabbi Yaacov Haber, I think that's where I saw him sefer. He says that the pshat is that the Mishnah says at the end of Kloyim, so Gemara brought in Pesachim also, in Yivamas, the Mishnah says that Meichrik sus Meichrin Kedarkan. That means that, you see, today when you go into a store to buy a suit, so you try on the suit, right? Like take it off the hanger and try on the suit, usually. In the olden days, that wasn't the way it goes. When the salesman put on the suit, and you saw how it looked. I presume this was because mirrors were not yet invented. I don't know when. We got to wiki that. When were mirrors invented? That's also interesting. But so how do you see how the suit looks? So the salesman put it on. And that's what the Mishnah says. And the salesman puts it on. Does the salesman have to worry that the beged is shatnez or not shatnez before he puts it on? That's the Mishnah's question. Says the Mishnah, Meichrik sus, Meichrin kedarka. That if you're selling clothing, you're selling suits, you just sell it. You don't have to be choshesh whether it is shatnez, it's not shatnez. Why? Says the Rav Bar Tanura on the side, because there's no, you're not doing it for hana of levisha, you're doing it for a different reason, to sell money. There's no personal hana. He's not doing it to get warm, he's not doing it to look nice, he's doing it to, he's a mirror. He's a mirror to the other person. So therefore it's mutter. So says Rabbi Yaacov Haber that the big day kahuna are worn, beautiful begadim, are worn l'kavod u'l'sifaris. L'kavod u'l'sifaris. Who's kavod and whose tifaris is this? So if it's your kavod, Kohen's kavod, the Kohen's tifaris, so what are you wearing shatnez? But if the whole thing is kavod Hashem, nothing to do with me. On the contrary, I have no asr b'hana. The begadim are asr b'hana. Not just he's not doing it for hana, it's asr b'hana. Not allowed to have hana. If he wears it outside, he's having hana. If he wears it as a raincoat, he's having hana. So it's no hana. Since it's no hana, there's nothing wrong with him wearing shatnez. That doesn't explain why he should wear shatnez, but explains why. Like there's no why not. Like there's no. The whole thing is not l'chvod atzma, so it's not a halbosh b'chlal. It's not even. He's not wearing shatnez. Wearing is the pshat shekei nene. That he's having enough from it. But if I'm not having enough from it, so it's mutter. So the concept here is that the real idea is one takes oneself completely out of the picture. That's truly humility. Humility is that is not to say I'm not worthy. Machzich nicht as I claim, du bist nicht as I grace, right? It's not about how worthy I am. It's about how I'm not the important one in this equation. If the issue is learning, ask the question. What's the difference if somebody thinks you're stupid? So what? If whatever the issue is, if you take yourself out of the equation, you make much better decisions. Besides for being a better Eved Hashem, make much better decisions, because when we start thinking about ourselves in the middle, we mess up everything. Even with our own kids, start thinking how does it look at it? Like if somebody would make I mean, everyone understands this academically, and it's amazing how many people do it. Somebody would make a shidduch for their child because it's a good covenant for me. Shidduch. So the whole thing is wrong. The whole thing is wrong. One has to, when it comes to all of chinuch for our children, the only way to make a good decision is when you're completely removed from the whole situation. It's not this is what I am, this is what I'm not, this is my madrega. Forget about yourself. Just completely for the sake of another person. That's when you make a clear decision and a good decision. Probably even in business that's true. That I mean, of course you're doing it for yourself, but if you take yourself out of the equation, you probably make a clearer decision. Completely, you're not nogei ba'atzmo. So that's what's interesting. So he says here to get to the inside here. Why I mention all this. In the paragraph that starts, we started this, Od miderech Anavah hamitis. We're talking about real Anavah, page 20, third paragraph. Sheyu kol inyane haguf. And I believe that now that I've explained this becomes clear. Sheyu kol inyane haguf. It's really unimportant. It's really unimportant how I feel about this, or whether I feel worthy or I don't feel worthy. It's not unimportant.
Ad efes v'tohu yechashvu mibli hirgish loy oneg v'loy nega. Remember last Sunday we learned that oneg is the greatest pleasure, and nega is the worst type of suffering, and oneg and nega is the same letters turned around. What's the difference in oneg and nega? Where you put the I in. How you look at it. So it's not because, well, Koman David Rahman Latavavid. So if Hashem does it, it must be, I think it's a nega, it's really an oneg. That's superficial. The deep point is, what's the difference? Today, a person is giving me this, tomorrow, a person is giving me I can't tell you, like, I'm dwelling on this because I think it's such an important, to me, it's such an important wisdom of life that he's giving us. I went yesterday to Tel Hashomer Hospital to visit somebody, a Rav, who's unfortunately dying in the hospital of leukemia. It was very, very, so, when I walk, he could hardly talk. For the leukemia, he had a stroke. And he could hardly talk. But his mind was good, but he could hardly talk. So, like, the first thing that he said to me, I went close to his ear. You go to these things, it's a humbling experience. You have to wash your hands, you have to put on a special baguette, you have to, because it's so delicate, the situation. And he said to me, this is not for me, laying here dying. So I said, well, who's it for? I can't imagine, he says, hey, this is for me, I like this is cool. Who's it for? So he said, he says to me, Rabbi Yaacov, tell me some kind of a Torah. So I said, I learned today Gemara. This was on my head. I learned yesterday morning a Gemara with my Chavrusa, Brachas Samach Vav Amud Aleph. So the Gemara says that that there was a certain Beis HaKisei in Tiberia, the Gemara says. Anybody familiar with it? Certain Beis HaKisei in Tiberia, that whoever went in there was nizuk, was somehow damaged, shadim, I don't know, whatever, like dangerous Beis HaKisei. And Rabami, I think it was, went into the Beis HaKisei, nothing happened to him. So they asked him, like, how did you survive this toilet? Like, how did you do this? So he said, Kabbalah hi biyadenu. That's what he said. He says, I have a Kabbalah, means from his Rabbeim, that Beis HaKisei b'shtikusa. V'yisurim b'shtikusa. So this is the Gemara. I have a Kabbalah that there's 2 times you're supposed to be quiet. Shtika, shtum. One of them is in the Beis HaKisei. Not supposed to talk. Right? It's annoying, right? You go to a rest stop on the highway and somebody's talking on their cell phone. It's annoying. It's a goyish thing. We don't talk in the Beis HaKisei. Chassidim are very makbid on this, but it's a Gemara, not to talk in the bathroom. But and Yisurim, if one is suffering, shtikusa. So I said to this rabbi, I said, what's the connection? Beis HaKisei b'shtikusa. Like, why did this Kabbalah all go together? Like, Beis HaKisei b'shtikusa, v'yisurim b'shtikusa. What's Pshat, Chaim? What's Pshat? What's the connection between the 2 things? So I saw in the side of the Rabbi Yaakov, I think it's from the Maharal Greeks, that the Pshat is that basically, like Asher Yatzar, when things are working, you're healthy. Everything is good. Things are good. Somehow or another, like Chazal weren't afraid to say that, like, your body's all working. That's evident in the Beis HaKisei. Everything's working well. If everything's going well in your life, everything's working, you're healthy, you feel good, shtikusa. Don't talk. If you're Yisurim, if everything's not going good and you're suffering, shtikusa. So there's 2 times that you're supposed to be shosek. Oineg, nega. So there's 2 times that there's shtika. One is when everything's going good. You ever heard this? Like somebody says, oh, you're making so much money, you're doing so well, you're so not because of ayin hara. It's deeper than ayin hara. Like, I don't know, ayin hara, it's, maybe that's what ayin hara means. Like, shtikusa, like, if Hashem is giving me this, just be makabel.
Arna Cohen.
Yeah, that's the other way. But just don't talk so much, because when you're talking, Ladati, you're involving yourself, and maybe I have this chus. Yes, I was very smart. Yes, just be quiet. Like Hashem is giving you a bracha. Just be quiet. The right thing to say, if you're speaking at the Sheva brachas of your child, is nothing. That's the right thing to say. Everybody will appreciate it, and it's the correct thing. Shtikusa. Person is suffering. Shtikusa. Meaning, Oneg Nega is the same thing. It's just like whatever Hashem does with me. That's an Anavah. That's Anivus. Anivus is that I'm completely not in that picture. This is all an introduction. I didn't start yet learning, but I'll tell you one thing. something like so gewaltig. I saw this in Reb Itzele, and it was very moving. That Reb Itzele, the Pri Tzaddik, at the beginning of Parshas Korach. So he says, Korach makes an announcement, or he's speaking actually to Moshe Rabbeinu. Korach, Moshe Rabbeinu, and he says to him, Lama tisnasu al kal Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, you're such a balgaiva. Lama tisnasu al kal Hashem. Why are you lording? Why are you making yourself higher? Nasi tisnasu. Why are you making yourself higher than everybody else? Rashi says, Kulanu amdu bar Sinai. We're all at Har Sinai, which is a very deep question that he was asking. But says Rav Tzaddik, like Moshe Rabbeinu was the Anav B'Kol Adam, yeah? Like, so there was nobody in history more humble than Moshe Rabbeinu. So, of all things to call Moshe, call him a Ganav, call him whatever, call him a guy, like, where's the credibility in this here, like you take a person who's like the most honest person in the world. Everybody knows that honest is, you're a crook. Like if you're gonna complain, if you're gonna make a campaign against somebody, so say something that makes some sense. Say something credible. What was it calling Balgaiva? So interesting, by the way. This question is asked that I saw by Reb Itzele, a perfect, beautiful question, also by the Sfas Emes. So the Sfas Emes says, just before I get to Reb Itzele, the Sfas Emes says, tremendous, important Yesod. He says the pshat is that you will find in life, as the Ger Rebbe, Sfas Emes, you'll find in life that that people will accuse you of things, dafka in the areas that you excel the most. In other words, if you're impeccably honest in business, people will dafka call you a crook. If you're untruthful, if you're truthful in everything, people will say you're a liar. He doesn't explain. I guess that's his personal experience.
Klal Yisrael on the media.
Yeah, exactly.
Klal Yisrael on the media. Mamish, perfect example. Mamish, Eretz Yisrael on the media. It's so here we're like so overly peaceful, and we're going to consider overly aggressive. But now, why that is psychologically is out of the scope of this session. The whole thing I'm saying is out of the scope of what I'm saying. But how to understand that psychologically. So he says that Korach said to Moshe Rabbeinu, he was like, Dafka, the thing that he excelled in the most, that he was the humblest of all men, why are you a Balgaiva? Reb Itzele says, though, I don't know if this is a contradiction, but more Reb Itzele-ish, he says that, he says, when it comes to kavod, he says there's three ways. He says, let's say, a big Rav walks into the room, and nobody stands up. This goes back to my guy at the chuppah, like nobody stands up for him. So one guy who would come in and say, "Look, don't you know who I am? Don't you realize who I am? Well, stand up." Okay, Balgaiva. What does an Anav do? People stand up for him. He said, stand up. He said, what did Moshe Rabbeinu do?
Fell on his face.
He didn't notice one way or the other. Standing, you're sitting. If you're standing, you're sitting. Like if I'm noticing how everyone's reacting to my entrance, where am I? I'm all about me. So Balgaiva was telling everyone stand up. An inadequate Anav, right? An amateur Anav is telling everyone sit down. But a real Anav is saying, It really don't make any difference to me. You stand, you said, this is not where I am, this is not where my mind is, this is not where my heart is, it just doesn't really make any difference. The Reb Itzele says, if you look at the Chazal, it says also, Chashdu alei shazish. Moshe Rabbeinu, Chashdu alei shazish. They thought he was having too much to do with the women. Right? So, you have the same type of idea, says Reb Itzele. There's one person who has too much to do with the women. And there's another person who's like, so gave himself and has had the time. And then there's another person just doesn't, the real Baal Batrega doesn't notice. It's like the Gemara says that the Rabbanim and the Gemara in Ksuvas Yud Zayin, the Rabbanim and the Chasna used to put the kala on their shoulders, dance. So that's how do you do that? It's like I'm carrying a chair on my shoulder. They were so completely. You got to be honest about this thing too. But there's a madrega. So says Reb Tzadok ingeniously that you could see where Korach was coming from, because from the outsider who didn't understand the subtlety of who Moshe Rabbeinu was, say, why aren't you telling everyone to sit down when you walk in? You must be a Balgaiva. Not realizing that he was completely removed from the entire situation. And if you see Moshe Rabbeinu, who was not mechalik when he was talking between a man and a woman, and it was just, so you could say, Chashtu alei shazish. There's a possibility of Chashtu alei shazish. So what he was, Korach was asking a very, very sophisticated question from where he was coming from, his perception of it, whereas now it wasn't getting Moshe Rabbeinu that his mind is so much not there that it could actually come across as being a Balgaiva or even Chashtu alei shazish. It could actually come across the wrong way. So for like Marsayan, maybe, like he should have told everyone to sit down at. but he just didn't. It was completely selfless. So the real taich of Anivus is selfless. So here, now that I said all this, Od miderech Anavah amitis shiyu kol inyonei aguf nivze v'nimas be'enov be'emes. Ad shela efes oto yechashu b'li hirgish loy oileg v'loy nega. Rak, and now here's the caveat that we need to understand a little bit. Rak b'darchei Hashem yigveyu. What's the pasuk here? Who knows? Gava libai b'darchei Hashem. It's a pasuk in Divrei Hayamim. It talks about Yoshiyahu HaMelech. Yoshiyahu HaMelech was a tzaddik. In sefer Malachim and in Divrei Hayamim, it says goes through every king in Israel, and there's like one classification: either halach b'derech David aviv, and loy halach b'derech David aviv. He was like David, he wasn't like David. That was the benchmark. Yoshiyahu was like David, tzaddik. Menashe was not like David, right? That's Russia. So what was the story of Yoshiyahu? It says there in Divrei Hayamim that Klal Yisrael at that time was not beseder, and they were doing like we keep on doing. They were being oved as habal. They were doing avodah zarah. This is a shmooze why we were doing avodah zarah. We'll get to that. But they were doing avodah zarah, and Yoshiyahu HaMelech went on a campaign to eradicate avodah zarah from Klal Yisrael. And on that, the Torah says, "Vayigba libai b'darchei Hashem." That now Vayigba means, let's just analyze it. Vayigba libai gavoa. Gavoa. Vayigba libai b'darchei Hashem. So there was a midah here that the Torah points to of Yoshiyahu HaMelech, positive midah of gava leiv, a leiv gavoa, high-heartedness, if there's such a thing, high-heartedness. So what was that? What do you say, Shmuel? What was that? What was that?
Are we doing the right thing?
But what's gava leiv?
Was it gaiva or was it anavah? What was going on there?
Was it gaiva? Now people say it was gaiva, good gaiva, but gaiva spelled with a vav and it's spelled with a base. And that's a pashut that it was gaiva. And from here we have an expression which has become part of Klal Yisrael, that sometimes, this is the way it's usually translated, which I believe is wrong, that sometimes it's important to be a Baal Gaiva. And that is that, this is the usual translation, that I'm proud to be a Jew, and normally, let's say, a person seeing everybody around you being over Avodah Zarah, and I'm the melech, so you kind of go with it, do the best you can, and you would say, I'm not gonna interfere. Vayigba liba b'darchei Hashem means in the ordinary translation that no, I'm full of self-esteem, and I know what's right, as you say. I know what's right, and I'm going to do something about this. That's vayigba liba b'darchei Hashem. It's possible that that's not really the meaning vayigba liba b'darchei Hashem. That there's, in other words, there's a place for some gaiva mutaris. There's a place for a little bit of arrogance on the part of a Torah-keeping Jew, that I'm going with a little bit of gavhus alev. I'm proud of what I am. I'm not going to be misbayish, mipnei amaligi molav, and I have a certain feeling of self-importance, and that's good because that's good for a kadosh l'kavod u'l'sifaris. That's the regular translation. I think that if you look carefully at the Mefarshim there, at the source here, and in the Mefarshei HaTorah, that's not what it means. Vayikba liba b'darchei Hashem means that a person would have a normal tendency to say, listen to the subtle difference, a person would have a normal tendency to say, how am I going to fix this? Who am I to fix this? How can I fix this? Just leave it alone. This was the crime of so many leaders in the history of the Jewish people. How am I going to fix this? Nothing to do. That's the way they are.
Yeah.
Kids these days, whatever. I grew up with rabbis saying that. Good people. But, and what's the answer? They were too humble or too big baligaiva or something. I don't want to criticize, just a little bit of criticize. But the vayikba liba b'darchei Hashem means that it's usher for a person to say, who am I to fix this? What am I supposed to do? Who am I? Hashem gave you kochos. It's about how you fix it. Just because you don't see how it can be fixed, there's some siyata d'shmaya here, and maybe the reason why you're not going at it, is because you're too worried about what are people going to say about me. You see, a person says, I can't do it, I'm not going to be matzliach, so that means you're worried about looking stupid. It's like me not asking questions in a shir. That's what we're petrified about. There's a certain ego in that too. So vayikba liba b'darchei Hashem, the pshat in Yoshiyahu HaMelech was that he was selfless. The Klal Yisrael is being ovdei habal. They're being over Avodah Zarah. I need to do something.
Pinchas.
Yeah. It wasn't about my personal, this is what I can achieve, this is my goal, this is my strategy. Vayikba liba b'darchei Hashem. So there's no arrogance involved, and in my opinion, there's no heter for arrogance, period, anywhere, anytime. It's not, it's arrogant. It's not, there is no arrogance. There is only vayikba liba b'darchei Hashem, knowing. See, there's so much discussion today about self-esteem and what a positive thing that is. I'm not so sure. I don't know what that means. Yes, if I'm yelling at everybody because I'm lacking the self-esteem, or if I'm getting depressed, I can understand. But I don't know why that's become somehow a central nakuda of Yiddish. Oh, I know why, because Rabbi Twersky wrote a book about it. But I'm not sure. They have to understand. Is this a virtue really? But the virtue is no self.
Be locked in action.
What?
A person can be down and locked in action. So there's a certain amount of self-esteem one needs to be able to take action. Right,
and then but maybe the higher metric is no self. What's the difference if it's going to work? What's the difference if you're going to if you're afraid of saying something, or doing something, or making a bracha b'tzibur, or you're in a non-frum environment. If you're afraid, so that's also worrying about myself. So that's so what we're talking about by Yigbo Liba b'darchei Hashem is talking about that his lave is Basar l'Shamayim. Liba b'darchei Hashem, and to Yoshio it didn't make any difference what anybody's going to think about him, one way or the other. But that wasn't gaiva, that was anivas. It wasn't arrogance, it was on the contrary. So he says, but at the same time, this he speaks about his father, was what is libam? It's talmidim. then in other words, his derech was, not that he walked around with a stoltz necessarily. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, I don't know. He was an Anavah Mikol Adam. He goes on to talk about his anivus and selflessness. But there was a certain gava libai b'darchei Hashem. A person like this is the first. I'm going to start the first yeshiva in history. Yeah. Okay, there was yeshivas before. There was yeshivas at Sur and Pumbedisa and Rabbi should set a big yeshiva, but not a yeshivas we know today. Not a yeshiva. So I'm going to start the first yeshiva. So that takes a certain amount of gaiva, right? Yeah, I'm going to start a yeshiva, and people are going to laugh me down. You want to write a book? Does anybody here want to write a book? If you want to write, come to the right place. if you want to write a book, so why do people not write their book? Because they somebody's going to look at it and they're going to laugh their heads off at this book. Who's this guy to write a book? So you're writing a book. Not writing a book is gaiva. Not writing a book is anivus. Right? It's a complicated question. Really, what do you care? Just, it should be a good book, but why are you concerned what people are going to say? It's Gufas Gaiva. So Vayigma Libai B'darchei Hashem meant that for the sake of his Talmidim, I'm going to start a yeshiva. For the sake of Talmidim, I'm going to say a Chiddush in Torah, even though I was going to say, who are you to say a Chiddush in Torah? I'm going to write a sefer, even though, as I say, so hence founded the yeshiva world with a tremendous amount of anivas, because Vayigma Libai B'darchei Hashem. So let me just end off with this nakuda here. End off. I know you're going to say you hardly started, but we'll go. But I have here the Netziv on brachas. And he quotes this. He says, this is the kavana. He says here a line later, when we daven in Shemona Esrei, just if you skip down a couple of lines, K'maimer harogel tamid b'finu b'amdenu b'tzvila. When we daven Shemona Esrei, at the end we say, U'l'makalolai nafshi sidaim, that to those that curse my nefesh, those that hate me, sidaim, nafshi sidaim, my nefesh is quiet, I don't feel it. V'nafshi ka'afar l'kol tiyeh, and my nefesh is like afar. The afar, can get stepped on, it can get planted in, it can be brought up. Afar is afar. It doesn't have its own regesh l'chara. V'acher kach psach libi b'sarasecha. And then we daven psach libi b'sarasecha. So this is all the Gemara and brachas that the Amoraim used to add a tefillah after Shemona Esrei. Basar tzlusei havim mispalel. After they davened. So after they said what the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah said, they said their own tefillah, to add their own. And everyone said a different one. And this is the one from all the cases in the Gemara. This is the one that we say, Elokai Netzar L'Shoni Meiros, V'Sayim Daber Mirma. That's not the tefillah of Rav, it's the tefillah of I think the son of Reb Itzele. Said this tefillah, the one that we say. And in there he said, he said these words, U'makalolai nafshi sidaim and nafshi ka'afar l'kol tiyeh. And only after you get to the madrega of afar, psach libi b'sarasecha u'mitzvosecha tirdoif nafshi. So after I become a nothing, I become afar. So now I can become a something of mitzvosecha tirdoif nafshi. It's only after I become right? It's only by gava libi darchei Hashem. That's the kavana of that tefillah Hashem. Let me be a nothing so I can become a something. Right? Like that Kohen wearing the big day kahuna. I can take away my covetous sifaris. Why? Because I'm giving covetous sifaris. So it says in the Tziv, and bear with me for 2 more minutes. It's beautiful. Pshat in the Gemara in Brachas Yud Zayin. Yesh v'adam arba yisodos. Person is made up, according to Chazal, of the 4 elements: Eish, Ruach, Mayim, Avar. Now, obviously, we're made up of cells and molecules and things, millions of things. But 4 categories that a person is made up. A person has an element of, the Greeks were into, there's an element of Eish, of fire, there's an element of Ruach, element of Mayim, and an element of Avar. V'hinei, see, I just studied this a lot because I went to Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago to officiate a wedding for my Talmud, who's the son of the founder of Earth, Wind, and Fire. So the whole band was there. It was a black wedding. Very cool. And I asked the question under the chuppah, like, what happened to the water?
Yeah.
Where's the mayim here? So I said, Shmuel's the mayim. He's the mayim, right? So, but that was it under the chuppah. The Earth, Wind, and Fire were under the chuppah, like Gaval again, their wives. That's unbelievable. One of them's Jewish. Irvine White's, I think his name is. It was him. Long black hair, black guy, and his wife's a black lady with a blonde sheitel. I asked her, "Is that your natural hair?" She said, "No, it's a sheitel." so she's legitimately Jewish. Her mother is Jewish, and the whole earth, wind, and fire are keeping the mitzvahs b'nei Noach, and the son is a Ben Torah, converted to Yiddishkeit, and the Kala was just white girl from Williamsburg. That was this chassid. So where's the mind? So he's very interested. So check on my Facebook page. You'll see the pictures, right? Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Offer. Hine. Eish v'Ruach. Here's the elements: fire and wind. Ma'orim Adam. That's the get up and go. Picks us up, wakes us up. The animation within the person. Mayim v'Offer. Mayim goes down. Offer goes down. Mayim v'Offer down. Throw it up, goes down. Ruach keeps going. Eish keeps spreading. Mayim and Offer contract. So Mayim v'Offer hema b'nechem. I say. So there's two elements. There's four elements, but they divide up into two elements within us. One is sort of pulling us down, and one is making us go. If your Eish and Ruach is very strong, you see people like this. If your Eish and Ruach is very chazak, that's really the way to worship Hashem. Zrizus, simcha, moving, right? Energy. Liyah Zorez, Machashiv Dracha. I have a goal. Sometimes you see a person walking down the street, a Ben Torah, he's walking with a stride and he's going someplace and he's got a briefcase in his hand and he's either writing a book or going to give a good shiur or something, like he's got some kind of a goal. You see something else with Shlit'a, so he's lacking in the Eish Hamayim. There's something wrong. There's no... When it comes to Ben Adam l'Chaveira, he midara. It's a bad thing. If you take the Eish and the Mayim and you apply it to Ben Adam l'Chaveiro instead of Ben Adam l'Makom, you will be angry all the time. You will be upset. You will be offended. That's rogez. That's what you're going to have, because Eish, Mayim, Kas, it comes from Eish and Mayim. So this Eish and Mayim is there for Ben Adam l'Makom, for Avodas Hashem. It should be completely removed when it comes to Ben Adam l'Chaveira. Meaning, l'dati, there's no heter for arrogance at all, ever. Not b'darchei Hashem, not b'darchei Hashem. Ben Adam l'Makom, there's arrogance. But in Ben Adam l'Chaveira, to lord yourself over somebody else, impossible. No, nothing. I don't think there's any heter for it, period. If a person finds themselves that they're more leaning towards the Mayim v'Offer type personality, hula hapech. Das, first is a bar das. Das means that you are balanced, you're choosing, you're thinking, right? You need to always tweak this thing and adjust it. When it comes to Bein Adam l'Chaveira, yikafar. That's what he says. Nafshi kafar l'kol tiyah. Nafshi kafar l'kol tiyah. Nafshi kafar l'kol tiyah. And that's the pshat in the tefillah. Nafshi kafar l'kol tiyah. V'hainu l'chol adam. You said this to me. You said that to me. I'm going to be so sensitive that if I'm too sensitive, that means that I'm too much thinking about myself. U'bein Adam l'Makom. But when it comes to Ben Adam l'Makom, yazariz u'merudaf lases kol hamitzvah. Then you have to be alive and strong and aggressive to do a mitzvah. So first you say nafshi kafar l'kol tiyah, and then you can say uva mitzvah. But when it comes to your mitzvahs, then I'm eish, then I'm ruach. Mitzvah tirdoif nafshi. That's where I have to be a rodef. A rodef is an aggressive person. I'm aggressive. When it comes to Ben Adam l'Makom, I'm offer a mayim. So there's no arrogance. So this was this very, very complicated balancing act. Because you say either I'm Eish or I'm Ramayim. I mean, what am I really, if you analyze it? The answer is Bardas. That's what we have to be. Bardas, it takes all the four elements which are within us and uses them appropriately and never lets any out of the box if it doesn't belong out of the box. So Benam L'Makom, it's always about Eishin Ruach, and Benam L'Chaver, it's always about Mayim and Afar. That's the way it is, and that's how he says it. That's how you could have a case of the biggest Anavah in the world, let's say Moshe Rabbeinu, also being the biggest Rosh Hashiva in the world, the biggest Marbitz Torah in the world, the biggest Kabbalas HaTorah in the world, because this is exactly the balance that he was able to strike, and the balance that he says that the Nefesh HaChaim was able to strike. I wish you a good Shabbos.